This is just a quick video to show you how you might how to use the data that you've downloaded from EIU. The data you get will be presented like this when you click the Excel button to export the data from the EIU database. So one of the problems is that it presents it horizontally, which is none too clever. Excuse me. So what you need to do is to present it vertically, and you do this by Control C, and then you go to a new sheet and you click and paste. You'll find that if you're pasting a second one, you have to block the actual area. When you paste, you use this paste special. I always click values to make sure, and transpose, and that changes a horizontal presentation into a vertical one. So when you do that, like that, you get the data presented vertically. Now, often you'll get the data sort of slightly misaligned like this, so you need to align it up properly. And in this case, we're going to simply just pull it down. Is that right? No, I don't think that is. Hang on. Okay, I've got it aligned now. Then you can analyze it in Excel, but it's quite a good idea to use the Minitab. Minitab is available on university computers. I hope you can download it onto your own device, but you need to check with the university on that one. So we've got our dates lined up. We've now got to give proper titles to each of these columns. Right, excuse me, I've done that. And one is the consumer price index and the other producer price index, and it's the percentage change per annum based on the percentage change in the average price. So that's the choice of statistic. That's not especially significant. Excuse me. Now, to save yourself some trouble, it's a good idea to make sure that the not availables are not at the top of your data. Otherwise, Minitab tends to think that you've got non-numeric data. It's a little fault with the system. So we're going to delete that and just take the data from 82. So it starts off with numbers so that when we put it into Minitab, we know that we know exactly what it is, that it's numerical. So if we just delete that, and I think we need to put US here, just so that we don't have the same name for the particular columns. They're all slightly different, which is an obvious thing to do. And oh, sorry, it's not US, it's Mexico, isn't it? EX, and here we have MEX. Now we have a nice clean block of numbers with a title at the top that starts off with numbers. So we can Control C to copy that, and we go Control V to paste. And this is our data set. This is the data set that we're analyzing, and we're doing it in Minitab rather than Excel. Why? Because Minitab is 10 times as quick as Excel. So if we're going to analyze this data, the first thing you always do with your data is to have basic descriptives. And you want descriptives of all your variables. And there it is. All that done for you in a matter of seconds. It's worth using this. And if you want to export it into a Word file, you just click on that menu, which is invisible, but it's in the top right. Click on copy, then go on to your project and Control V, and oops, that doesn't look too clever. We'll tidy it up. So I've tidied it up. I made the font smaller and then expanded it and made the font a little bit bigger, and that sort of fiddling around, and that gives you something that looks tidy. This is a standard thing in any little project, that you give the basic descriptives. How many variables, how many observations have you got? How many missing observations are there? What was the average? What's the standard deviation of the average? What is the standard deviation of the sample? The minimum, first, and then the quartiles. First quartile, the median, second quartile, third, and the maximum. So we have that, and you should always include that as part of your analysis. Back to the Minitab. This can be done with all of the Minitab output. Nice simple way, goes straight into your project, all neatly laid out for you. So I won't do that with the other things. Now, if you want to have graphs, it offers a number of graphs. It'll do scatter plots between two of the variables. It'll do a matrix plot. Let's do that, shall we? And that's a simple matrix plot. So we want to have a look at the variable, the relationship between the variables. Let's have another go. Select. And here it gives the relationship between our variables. So you can see that the relationship between the two price indices is very good. Right? When one increases, the other increases as well. If we look at the relationship between, well, we should really be looking at the change in the exchange rate, not the absolute exchange rate. So this is just a poor example. If we look at the US change in consumer price index and producer price index, we can see there is a positive relationship, but it's not nearly as good. If we look at the relationship between the consumer price index in the US and Mexico, we can see that there's no real relationship there. Right, so it's not the analysis of the content that interests us, it's just simply the presentation. But you can see that's a very powerful way of looking at scattergrams. And sorry, you can export this by file and sorry, I forgot how to do it, but you can export this by file and save graph as, and then you don't want it as Minitab, but I always go for JPEGs myself. Save it as a JPEG and save it in on your PC, and then you can include it into your project in the normal way. Oh, right. Okay, so that's if you're If you're doing a regression, then it's regression, regression, just follow the word regression. And, this is going to be a nonsense regression, okay? So we're going to put that one in there, and we're going to put this one, oops, let's just tell it that it's going to go there. I'm going to put this one in there, and this one in there as well. So we're going to have a regression now with this on the left-hand side equals that plus that. Let's just see what it does. We have here a regression analysis, and it's always best to do, as I did before, simply export it in the form designed. Let's just found the slider. This is the basic equation. These are outliers, right? So a large residual means that it's an outlier. So we've got a few outliers there, and it's always a good idea to, especially if your sample is small, to have a look at your outliers. For those of you who've not done regression, don't worry about it. It's just for those who are going to use regression. The p-values, remember that the p-value is the probability that there is no relationship, right? Probability that it's rubbish. So here there's a very low probability that it's rubbish. In other words, the change, inflation, if you like, in the US appears to be related to inflation in Mexico. So that is related to that. And actually, we saw that in the scattergrams. However, the PPI seems to be, would appear to be inversely related. So that would take a lot of explaining. But we're not concerned with the contents of this. We're just concerned with the process, the methodology. So that is our basic equation. That is the analysis. Looking at the p-values is important to see whether these coefficients are significant, whether there's a significant relationship or not. Then the overall model R squared, you can see, is actually quite good at 29.75. But as I said, we kind of saw that from the scattergrams. The ANOVA analysis of variance is another way of looking at it. You'll see some of the figures are pretty similar. You don't really need that. You just need the model summary, the coefficients, the regression equation, and the unusual observations. And again, you just need to cut and paste these sections straight into your project. If you want to do graphs, as I said, we have, you can do histograms, it'll do that. So you can go and have a look at a histogram, fit a normal curve to it if you want. We can, suppose we can have a look at one and select, and it'll do it all automatically. Okay, so that's the frequency that it's chosen, and it's chosen these automatically. In this respect, Excel is kind of a little bit better, because with Excel you can choose your steps here, which is a little bit better for a presentation. But a histogram is essentially just a kind of overall look at things. It's not a test in itself. So the approximate approach of Minitab will be sufficient for much analysis. Okay, so that concludes our look at getting data out of EIU and using it on Minitab.